Why was everyone staring at her arms? The training hall buzzed with tension. 40 recruits, raiders, rangers, junior SEALs, even a few Air Force controllers packed shoulder to shoulder on cold aluminum benches, all of them carved from Jim's steel and caffeine, all of them young, strong, confident. They thought they'd seen it all. They hadn't, not yet. The room smelled like sweat and floor polish. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. An American flag sagged between two dusty whiteboards. Outside, the building looked like nothing. Tan cinder block, cracked pavement. But inside, this was where egos came to be tested, where the loudest voices learned to go quiet, where respect stopped being assumed and started being earned. She sat in the center, 2 rows up, small frame, compact shoulders, no rank insignia, just a plain black PT shirt and boots laced tight. She hadn't spoken since she arrived, hadn't smiled, hadn't even looked around. Her head tilted down slightly as she adjusted her laces, methodical, quiet, invisible almost. Except for one thing. The tattoos. They crawled up both arms like vines breaking through concrete. Thick line work, jagged shapes, faded foreign symbols, constellations that looked burned into skin, no artistic flourishes, no aesthetic intention, just marks, too many marks, messy, aggressive, strange. Harper noticed first. He elbowed his buddy and smirked. "Looks like a sticker book," he whispered. The Marine behind him chuckled. "She lose a bet or something." Another voice quieter, "Walking graffiti." The joke spread like ripples in still water. Heads turned, eyes locked. They studied her like she was something out of place, something that didn't belong. Harper couldn't help himself. He leaned forward across the bench and tapped her lightly on the shoulder. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, voice just loud enough to cut through the chatter. "Why so many tattoos? You run out of skin or just running from something?" Laughter rippled through the benches. Not loud, just enough to make it sting. She paused, but she didn't turn around, not fully. Instead, she lifted her chin just slightly. Her voice came out calm, flat, like glass. "You don't know what you're looking at." Harper blinked. "Oh, I know a bad tattoo job when I see one." This time no one laughed, not right away. Something about the way she turned to glance at him, just briefly, seemed off. Not hostile, not insecure, just still, like the surface of deep water. She rolled her sleeve down a little farther, covering a few of the bolder lines, but not in shame. It felt more like someone sheathing a blade. The room shifted, subtle, the air got tighter. The door still hadn't opened. No instructors yet, no authority in the room, just wolves in a cage, sensing weakness where there might be none. Harper leaned back, smug. He thought he'd won. The others weren't so sure. She stayed seated, hands resting on her knees, eyes forward, silent. And then the door opened. A sharp, clipped voice cut through the air. "On your feet." The chatter died instantly. Benches rattled as boots hit the floor in unison. A Marine gunnery sergeant stepped into the room with a clipboard in hand, and the gait of someone who'd buried more men than these recruits had met. He didn't bother introducing himself. "This is not a motivational seminar," he said flatly. "This is not a TED Talk. This is a practical assessment. You are not here to be impressed. You are here to learn." He paced in front of the benches, scanning faces like he was counting rifles before a breach. "You'll do 3 drills," he continued. "One physical, one cognitive, one tactical. You will do them fast. You will do them quiet. You will not ask questions." He turned his head and scanned the group again, then pointed without warning. "You step forward." The woman stood. No hesitation, no grunt, just a clean, smooth rise. She stepped forward with surgical efficiency. Her boots didn't even squeak. Harper smirked behind her. "Watch her fold," he muttered. The gunnery sergeant led her to the far corner, where a 180-pound weighted dummy lay face down on the mat. "Drag it to the wall. Full kit, he said, nodding to the loadout gear stacked beside the dummy. She didn't blink. No swagger, no flex, just fast hands, straps, buckles, rigging. Then she dropped into position, wrapped the harness, and started to pull. There was no explosion of strength, no growling effort, just pure mechanical movement, heel over heel, step after step, her weight low and her face unreadable. She reached the wall. In half the time it took the last guy. No one clapped, no one made a sound. "Reset," the gunny barked. Next, he handed her a headset and gestured to a digital panel on the wall. Loud white noise blasted into her ears. Alarm screaming, engine roar. A timer clicked on. The screen filled with a rotating puzzle matrix. Memory, logic, sequence. She didn't hesitate. While others fumbled or flinched, she kept her eyes locked, fingers tapping, never glancing away. When the timer beeped at 90 seconds, the screen flashed green. She was done. Harper leaned forward, frowning. "Last one," the gunnery sergeant said. He tapped a tablet and a simulation appeared on the monitor. Drone footage from a mock village. "Identify the entry flaw. 60 seconds." She stood still for 5. Then said, "Northwest approach. Overgrown trail. Slight tire compression. Irregular spacing. That's not patrol, it's a flank team. The main entry's a distraction." The gunny stared at her, then nodded slow. No fanfare, no praise. She returned to her seat without looking at anyone. Harper leaned toward his buddy, whispering, "She thinks she's special forces or something." Without turning, she spoke. "I don't think anything. I know what I've done." The gunnery sergeant paused mid-note, just for a moment, then moved on. But the room didn't forget that look on his face. Breaks at training facilities are never truly breaks. They're observation windows, moments where posture says more than protocol, where the real hierarchy is tested in how you rest, not how you stand. The recruits spilled into the side area just outside the main hall, a patch of gravel and bleachers shaded by a sagging awning. Canteens hissed open. Gloves came off. Laughter crept back into the group like a draft under a door. She sat alone. No one told her to. She simply didn't join a circle, didn't hover for validation. She knelt by her rucksack, rewrapping the gauze on her palms from the drag drill. Her hands moved with that same economy of motion. Tight, careful, like everything she did had been practiced enough to waste nothing. Harper clocked her from across the gravel. Still sore from being outperformed and still unable to square what he'd just seen, he decided to double down. A recruit's pride doesn't retreat quietly. He nudged 2 buddies, Silva and Denton, and approached. They circled her casually, like they were waiting for a bus, not boxing her in. Harper dropped down onto the bench beside her. "So," he said, tone light, amused, "those tattoos, what are they? Bad decisions or bad breakups?" She didn't look up. "They're not your business." Silva leaned on the rail behind her. "Come on, every tattoo's a story, right? Give us one." Denton smirked. "Or she's just a poser, no unit tags, no branch, just squiggles." She kept wrapping her hand. The silence stretched. Harper nodded toward her forearm, where a thick black line curved around a faded set of coordinates. "That one, what's that?" She paused just for a second, then kept rapping. "A place I won't forget." "Why?" Denton pressed. She tied off the gauze, flexed her fingers, then looked up at him, not angry, not defensive, just tired. "Because 3 people didn't make it out." The gravel seemed to go quiet. Even the wind held still. Silva straightened slightly. Harper's smirk faded. "What do you mean?" Harper asked, quieter now. She stood, shouldered her pack, and walked past them without another word. But Harper couldn't let it go. He followed a few steps behind. "Wait, seriously, what unit were you with?" She stopped, turned halfway. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried weight. "You really want to know?" Harper nodded. "DVGRU Team 6, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Somalia, she paused, places you've never heard of. Silva's mouth opened slightly. Denton went still. Harper tried to speak, but nothing came out. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. You asked about my ink. You want the full tour. He nodded again, slower this time. She rolled up her left sleeve, all the way to the shoulder. And what they saw wasn't art. It was a map. What does it mean when someone carves their past into their skin? Her forearm was covered in coordinates, longitude, latitude, scratched in uneven lines like they'd been etched in haste, some faded, some sharp, each one a place, each one a moment she couldn't forget. This one, she said, pointing to a set near her wrist, is where my spotter died, sniper fire. We were pinned for 11 hours. I carried him 4 miles. He didn't make it. Harper's throat tightened. She moved her finger up. This one, IAD, lost 2 from my team. One of them was 23, hadn't even sent his first paycheck home yet. Silva looked away. Denton stared at the ground. This, she continued, tapping a jagged symbol near her elbow, is the village where we pulled 6 kids out of a collapsed school. Earthquake. We dug with our hands for 16 hours, saved 4, lost 2. Her voice didn't waver, but it carried something else now, something heavier than sadness. Memory. And this, she said, rolling her sleeve higher to reveal a crude drawing, a child's sketch, stick figures holding hands. A little girl drew this. She gave it to me the day we evacuated her family. She's probably 17 now. I don't know if she's alive. Harper felt something crack inside his chest. So when you ask me why I have so many tattoos, she said, rolling her sleeve back down, it's because these aren't decorations. They're not stories I tell at parties. They're people, places, moments I refuse to let the world erase. She stepped closer, not threatening, just present. And when you laugh at them, when you mock them, you're laughing at the dead. No one moved. The wind picked up slightly. Somewhere in the distance, a door slammed. Harper's voice came out raw. I didn't know. You didn't ask, she said simply. And then she walked away. This time no one followed. They didn't see her as a soldier anymore. They saw her as something else, something they couldn't name. When the session resumed, the energy in the room had shifted. No more side jokes, no more smirks, just quiet focus, respect born from shame. The gunnery sergeant didn't acknowledge what had happened outside. He didn't need to. He'd seen it before. The moment when young soldiers realize the difference between confidence and arrogance, between strength and wisdom. He gestured toward the woman. Chief Keene will lead the next portion. Chief. The word landed like a stone in water. Harper's stomach dropped. Silva closed his eyes. Denton exhaled slow. She stepped to the front of the room. Calm, unhurried, she didn't need to prove anything anymore. Most of you think survival is about strength, she began. Her voice was steady, clear, not loud but impossible to ignore. It's not. Strength runs out, adrenaline fades, muscle fails. She paced slowly in front of them. Survival is about decision, about staying calm when everything inside you is screaming, about knowing when to fight and when to wait, when to lead and when to follow. She stopped in the center of the room. I've seen men twice your size freeze under fire. I've seen women half your weight carry wounded teammates 3 miles through enemy territory. Size doesn't matter. Ego doesn't matter. What matters is whether you can make the right call when the world is ending around you. The room was silent. One more thing, she added. The people you underestimate, the ones you mock, the ones you overlook, they might be the ones who save your life one day. She let that sit. Then she continued the lesson. For the next 2 hours she walked them through real scenarios, ambush response, casualty extraction, decision trees under pressure. She didn't yell, didn't dramatize, just taught, with precision, with patience, with the kind of authority that doesn't need volume. And every single recruit listened. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. When the session ended, no one rushed to leave. They lingered, packing gear slowly, glancing at her, wanting to say something but not knowing how. Harper stayed seated, staring at his hands. Silva sat beside him. "You going to apologize?" Silva asked quietly. Harper nodded. "Yeah, I am." He stood, walked to the front of the room where she was packing her gear. "Chief Keen." She turned. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice didn't waver, but his hands shook slightly. "I misjudged you." She studied him for a moment, not harshly, just measured. "You judged the paint," she said, "not the steel underneath." He nodded. "I didn't know who you were." "That's the problem," she replied. "You didn't ask." He swallowed hard. "You're young," she continued. "You're strong. You think you've already met the world, but here's the truth. This job doesn't care how fast you are, or how charming, or how clean your record is. It cares how you respond when you're stripped down to nothing but decision and instinct." She stepped closer, just once. "And the moment you stop respecting the people beside you, the moment you assume the loudest ones are the strongest ones, you put someone at risk, maybe your teammate, maybe a civilian, maybe yourself." Harper didn't respond. He couldn't. "You'll learn or you won't," she said. "But if you plan to walk into rooms like this again, you better start looking at what people carry, not what they show." Then she stepped past him, not cold, not distant, just done. Harper turned slightly as she walked away, as if trying to think of something to add. He didn't. There was nothing left to say. Most lessons aren't learned in classrooms. They're learned in the moments after, when the noise fades, when you're left alone with what you said, what you did, what you didn't understand. The room had mostly cleared. A few recruits hung back near the door, speaking in low tones or simply staring at the floor. Whatever had started as a routine inter-branch seminar was now something else entirely, something they didn't have words for yet. Chief Keen was halfway to the exit when a voice, small and careful, came from the middle row. "Chief." She turned slightly. It was one of the youngest in the room, a Navy recruit, barely out of academy, face still soft with youth under his buzz cut. He looked down as he spoke, but his voice didn't shake. "Why all of them, really?" The others stilled. Even the ones who had been halfway out the door paused. She took a breath, looked down at her own forearms, faded symbols, blotchy lines, sharp edges blurred by time and sun. She walked back to the front of the room. No tension, no flare of drama, just her boots over concrete and the distant hum of the old AC unit overhead. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because memory fades, ink doesn't." The room didn't move. She looked around, not at any one face in particular, but at all of them, all the muscle, all the youth, all the egos still soft enough to shape. "Some tattoos mark where I survived," she continued. "Some mark where I failed, and some," her voice caught, "but not from weakness. Some keep the ones I lost close." There was no pause for effect, no trembling, just truth. She rolled her sleeve back down slowly, covering most of the chaos ink again. The marks faded beneath fabric like smoke returning to air. "You won't understand today," she said. "You're not supposed to. You're still whole, still clean, still lucky." She reached for her duffel. "But one day when the plan's gone, when your strength breaks, when the world stops caring, you'll look down at your arms, and maybe they'll still be clean, maybe they won't." She slung the bag over her shoulder. "But either way, you'll know what you carry, and you'll understand why I wrote mine down." Then she turned and walked out into the light pouring through the hallway glass. No salute, no goodbye, just quiet boots against tile. No one followed her, no one spoke, not yet. They just watched the ink vanish behind the sunbeam and wondered how many stories they'd never see. The room emptied slowly, not like after a drill, more like after a funeral, quiet, staggered, contemplative. Harper stayed seated. His elbows rested on his knees, palms dangling open like he'd just dropped something important and didn't know where it landed. He stared at the floor where she had stood just minutes earlier. There was nothing there, but it felt like something still lingered, a presence, a truth, a weight. He didn't know what to do with it. A moment later, boots crunched nearby. It was Silva. He sank onto the bench beside Harper with a long exhale. They sat in silence for a while, watching the last of the recruits shuffle out. Then Silva said, "You going to apologize again tomorrow?" Harper didn't look up. "Yeah," he muttered. "Yeah, I am." He scratched the back of his neck and blew out a shaky breath. "I thought she was some admin they sent to make a point," he said quietly. "You know, diversity box check." Silva didn't answer. He didn't need to. "I looked at her and saw tattoos. That's all," Harper added. "Didn't even think to ask what they were." Silva nodded once. "We all did." Harper finally looked up, but when she talked about that fallback trail, the blood, the symbols, the map she carved into herself, he shook his head slowly. That wasn't ink, that was something else. Silva leaned forward, arms resting on his thighs. "You ever meet someone who makes you feel like you haven't earned the right to lace your own boots?" Harper gave a hollow laugh. "Just did." They sat there in silence again, not because they had nothing left to say, but because whatever came next wouldn't be for performance. There were no jokes left to cover their embarrassment, no swagger to reinflate their egos, just acknowledgement. Harper stood up slowly, slinging his canteen over his shoulder. "Next time she teaches," he said, "I'm sitting in the front." Silva raised an eyebrow. "Thought you didn't like lectures." "I don't," Harper replied, "but I've never seen anyone walk in and change the air in a room without raising their voice." He paused near the door and turned back once more, looking at the spot again. The same bench, the same floor, the same scuffed concrete. Only now he understood what he'd missed. "Too many tattoos," he murmured to himself. "Jesus, I had no idea." And then he walked out, quieter than he'd entered. The boots were the same, but the man inside them wasn't.